Welcome to an episode of Community Off the Cuff. I'm Nick Rankin. Today we're sitting down with our two new social work interns at the Norwich Police Department. It's part of an experimental program run through Eastern Connecticut State University, and we're going to tell you all about it. Stick around.
28836.
Rosa, Francelis, welcome.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us on your podcast.
Stoked that you're here. So we've been, we're 2 weeks in?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. And can you give us like the basics about you in school? Where'd you go to school? Why social work? And how'd you wind up doing this?
Do you want to start?
I can start. So I currently go to Fordham University. I chose social work because I wanted to help out in my community and make a change, and it was something that I was interested in since I was in the 9th grade in high school. And what made it official for me was I had a social worker when I was in 11th grade, and I liked what she did. I liked how she helped me and changed my life. So I figured that if I can help somebody else, why not? So I went for social work.
Sure. Awesome. So local for you is?
Well, I'm from Willimantic.
You're from Willimantic?
Yeah.
And do you have some familiarity with Norwich yet, or are you developing that now?
I'm developing that now as I
All right. Awesome.
in my internship.
Rosa?
So I'm Rosa. I go to Sacred Heart University. And for me, very similar to Francelis, I always wanted to do social work. I had a social worker in high school, more so of a therapist, I would say. And she just made a huge impact on my life. And being out in the community, growing up, I'm from Norwich, so growing up, I was always involved in school, high school, middle school, just always out and about. I really wanted to give back, but I felt like I couldn't really do that until I got older. And that's when I discovered social work, and I started out in psychology actually. And for me, it was too limiting. So social work to me was more broad. And I don't know, yeah. So having that therapist that I had, wanting to give back, that's why I'm here now.
So that's interesting that you say it's psychology felt limiting. Like, what were you driving toward to begin with out of psychology? Like, to be a therapist, to be?
Yeah, a psychologist. When I thought of a psychologist, I thought of like the therapy piece and just that overall like job, I guess you could say.
Sure.
But with social work, like digging deeper, you could do that with social work. Like dig deeper, you can go out into the community, you can work in the criminal justice system, you can work in a school. Like with psychology, I felt limited because I thought, oh, well, I can only be a psychologist. But there's more to it too. I just think social work fits me more.
Sure. And what kind of things do you anticipate doing in the community beyond working with the individual one-on-one? I mean, I know Dr. Logan, who put this program together, kind of talks to you guys about being that micro, meso, macro picture. Where do you see yourself fitting into that, or do you know yet?
I mean, for me, I think in doing this internship now, I was never really into policy work or, working at the macro level. I always thought I was going to be at the micro level, like you said, working with individuals. But now being here, I do see myself working at the macro level and, wanting to implement policy and getting into the criminal justice system and doing what we're doing now, being in the police department. So, I mean, that's for me.
That makes sense. Francelis, what do you think? Like, why? I know this is a really specific internship. It's a new thing. Dr. Logan was, head over heels about you guys and very specific in who she picked. Yeah. So why do you wind up at a police department for your internship?
So for me, I have, my part in social work, I have done a lot of community work at the Meso level. But I do have a thing for policy, right? As we say, like I like to research policy. And I like to see how some policies affect people or can benefit people. I think for me, ended up at a police department because I feel to be an effective social worker, you need to learn to move out of the meso, macro, and micro smoothly because they all tie in with each other and they all affect each other. So I think that's part of why I ended up here, because I don't want to like boost about myself, but I feel like I can do that in a way. And also being in the police department, that's a different way that I can connect with community, and just bring a whole different outlook.
Sure. So for people that are maybe listening that aren't familiar with the terms that we're throwing around, could you like give us what is micro, meso, and macro level in social work?
Right. So meso, you're more involved in the community. So like case management, dealing, like finding services, being kind of like that broker.
Yeah.
Micro is one-on-one, so like more clinical. You will see that more in a clinical setting. And macro, there are social workers that their job is solely research policy, lobbying, seeing like meeting together to see how policies can change, how we can change. So it's all more of like policy based.
Do you find that a lot of those policy decisions or the way that like say the School of Social Work or a macro social worker informs legislation, is it numbers based or is it in account with what you're seeing out in the field? Like how are those policy changes recommended? Like how do they come about?
So, and Rosa, you can chime in if you like find something, but I always feel like it's like a domino effect, right? Like I think it starts at the meso level, like this is something that's a need in our community, and that same need might be affecting it, like an individual, and that it all like trickles down, right? Like it comes from policy, like policy might affect community and that affects individuals. So I think it all starts more of like the meso level where we can see like, oh, this is the need in our community, or like this is really affecting our community. How can we straighten this? And that kind of, I think meso and macro work a lot together.
Okay, that makes sense. So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I want to get this right and I want people that are listening to understand. It sounds like you go out in your day-to-day and your boots on the ground and you go encounter people. People have certain problems caused by exterior factors in their life somewhere. And then when you start to talk about this at a community level, you go, oh, well, this is a problem for a lot of people. And then the idea would maybe to research that problem and go, oh, well, as it turns out, we have this policy, this law, this set of funding in place that kind of enables this problem. And maybe if we alter that, we can alter the problem all the way down from the first person that you dealt with to begin with.
Right. So you look at like, let's say, for example, let's choose homeless, right? Like there's a big issue with homelessness. So we start looking at like what resources do we currently have in place for homelessness? How are we helping our homeless population? What can we do better to help our homeless population? How are they being effective? What do we need to change? So I think we do a lot of that work out in the community, and then we come back with all that information and we pass it on to like a macro social worker that's like gathering that needs that data and needs that support to be able to like back the policy. Then we can go up and say, well, this is how the McKinney-Vento policy is helping homeless students in high school, or like this is how it's affecting students in high school. So we can kind of do it like that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's evidence-based research to drive that policy. So I'm interested to know what you guys kind of expect out of this. Like, and we've obviously been working together for a couple weeks now, and then we had the Police Social Work Academy. Like, what did you think before all that? Like, what did you think this was going to look like? And is it that so far? Is it totally different? Rosa, you want to start?
Sure. So if I'm being honest, before the Police Social Work Academy, I was very hesitant about doing this work. I don't really know why now, like looking back, because being in it, it's so much more than I would have ever thought. just in these last 2 weeks, the experiences we've got, even the things that we learned at the Police Social Work Academy, I think those are things that so many people could benefit from, especially if this is a line of work that they want to go into. I think a lot of people don't realize that social workers can be embedded into the criminal justice system. And I say that because even in these last 2 weeks, talking with people that I go to school with, colleagues, whatever, they didn't realize, that they could be doing this too. They didn't realize that it was even an opportunity that they could seek. So from the Police Social Work Academy, the scenarios we did, the trainings we did, and now being in the field, it's just very, very eye-opening, especially for someone like me who wants to potentially be in the department, whether it be as a social worker or as a cop. So I think it's very eye-opening, and I'm enjoying it a lot so far.
What's your favorite part so far?
The ride-alongs.
The ride-alongs.
Yeah. The ride-alongs are great. I think, being out on the other side that people don't see is, like I said, it's eye-opening. You see this stuff that gets posted on social media, and people have this certain perception of, what police officers do. And now being the social worker riding alongside with them, there's reasoning behind what you guys do, and I think having social workers in the department is just going to be able to build that bridge, per se, whether it's between the police and the community or just between social workers and police in general. I think bridging that gap is going to be huge. So, yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Francelis?
I think, Rosa said a lot of the things that I was thinking. Like, my favorite part is to ride along.
Yeah.
Just because, like she said, it's a different outlook. It's something that the community doesn't get to see and we get to see. Before going into the academy, like, I was nervous just because I didn't know what to expect. And just going out into my community, right, and like explaining to my community what I'm going to be doing, what I'm working with. I think that we're in a time where everything is hot right now and everybody's tension is up. And so it's like, I feel like also there's a division between police and social work, and people feel like social workers don't belong in police setting or police officers don't belong with us. And I never really understood that part, but for some reason I was nervous before the academy. And so, like, I remember sitting in the parking lot in the academy and my stomach was in a knot. And, like, that first day I did not eat. And I remember, like, one of the other social workers was like, "You're not going to eat?" And I'm like, yeah, I already ate. But I really didn't eat. I was just so, like, tense and
What
everything.
did you think was going to happen?
Well, I don't know. It's just, like, everything was so new. I didn't know what I was, like, going to get into in a way. Like, I knew, but I didn't know what to really expect out of it. And then by the second day, I ate. That was the first thing I did when it was time to eat. I ate. But I just felt more comfortable. And I think that the tension that I had the first day was that I was just thinking about what other people were going to think instead of, like, I'm doing this to make a change. Like, I'm doing this to be different, to make something different, to build that, like, bridge that from the community and police and social work and police. Like, it's not about what you can do and what I can do. It's about you and I coming together and working as a whole team. We need to, just like I said in the academy, roll up our sleeve, and we have a bigger picture out there that we need to start focusing on.
I think the big picture is a huge part of it, coming from both ends, because there's this real tendency or different methodology for each profession, which produces different skill sets. And working together only means that you adopt each other's skill sets. You're adding to your tool belt. And I think cops really need to sometimes see the other side. We need to see the struggling person on the other side, because it's something we don't encounter, right? We don't encounter the struggle. We encounter how that manifests down the line, right? And it colors your perception of what you think of people, just all people. And I think social workers oftentimes don't see what the end result of all that struggle is, or when it finally boils over, they're not usually there, right? So we're both working with half a story, so we both wind up coming with separate methods to deal with the part of the story we know. So I think it's a natural progression. Like, we've had CIT involved in NPD for a long time, which is Crisis Intervention Team. You guys know this. I say it for anybody that maybe doesn't, but we would have clinicians that rode with us, and we found that, like, oh wow, now every officer's got a mental health skill set, and every clinician's got like a true safety skill set, or knows how to kind of deal with and diffuse violent situations and stuff like that. Were you suspicious of us at all? Because I was suspicious of you before Police Social Work Academy.
I wouldn't say suspicious, but my thought process was like, what is he thinking of me? Is he thinking of me like, not necessarily you, but like, what are they gonna think of me in the police department? Like, what is she here for? To tell me like I can better this, or like, that was like the thoughts that was running through my head. And then I was just like, how is the community gonna react when like we've gone in ride-alongs, right? And we get down and we look a little bit different than you guys, and they're like, what is this short girl doing here next to you? Like, who are you bringing?
Right.
At first, the first week, I was just, and I was nervous for everything. Like, I get nervous quick, but I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to go on this call. What is this person going to think? And now my second week is a little bit different. Like, I'm adapting, and it's kind of like everybody was filling me out, and I was filling everybody out in a way. So I was like, right now I'm like a sponge. I'm soaking everything you're throwing at me. I'm soaking what the person I'm on the ride along throwing at me, and just learning. I feel like there's room to growth, and that's part of the reason why I also picked Norwich. Right.
And you come with a connection to Norwich, right? Well, outside of living here, connection to the PD?
Yes.
What is that connection?
So I have several people who I know within the PD.
Yeah.
My dad is heavily involved in Norwich as well. He's a firefighter for East Great Plains. And he is very good friends with the chief. And, so coming in, I wouldn't say I had suspicions. I was nervous because of those connections that he shares. It could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, just as it could be for anything. But I think I was more so nervous about kind of like what Francelis said. What are you guys going to think of us? What are people going to think about us being in the department, whether it's our friends, our family? Are we going to have those supports? I'd be lying if I said I didn't receive some backlash already from like, what are you doing in a police department? Why are you working there?
From where?
From friends, from family. And it's just, they don't understand, what it is and the work that we're doing, and the passion that we have for it. I think that's, a struggle for a lot of people to understand, is if you don't have a passion for the same thing that I'm doing, then no, you're not going to understand it. It's my job to show you how to understand it and why it's such a passion for me.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I haven't caught quite the backlash at the department for it, but it's one of those things where, so Dr. Logan calls and says, hey, I've got a great idea. Here's what we've been doing in Willimantic. And my first reaction is like, all right, I need to really vet this. And I get suspicious. Like, after the last year and a half that we've had, I was like, all right, is this academia coming in from the outside to say, we're going to fix police work because you don't know how to do your police work? Or is this a genuine attempt to bridge a gap? Is this what's the level of understanding there? Like, all those things. Is it an ambush, right? Like, any number of us has kind of been caught in ambush situations over our whole careers. So, like, I was suspicious of that, and then, like, spent quite a bit of time talking to Dr. Logan about the program and, hey, some of her ideas and what she was really thinking about. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm on board with this. And you can tell it's of goodwill, right? You're like, oh no, this is a person that genuinely wants to be involved and help. And it sounds like the interns do too. And then, like, getting ready for the Police Social Work Academy, I'm going, okay, well, I know what this doctor's like, and I know that she's reasonable. I know that she worked in the court system. What are college students going to be like right now when I walk in as the police officer? And what can I expect here? Like, am I a villain and I have to win people over, or am I just a person, or is it like, I have no idea what's going on? And then I was super surprised. Like, it didn't take more than, I don't know, I'd say half a day to where I was like, oh, okay, no, like I'm in a room full of like friendly people here, and
Yeah.
so I was excited to see that. And then I don't know what my expectations are for the program yet. Like, I know what CIT looks like, so we've been trying to send you guys on the ride-alongs and like to speak with victims or children or whoever might need some help outside of law enforcement, like strict adherence to the law. And I think that so far that's working. It's experimental. Have people been welcoming the public? Have they been welcoming to you?
I say yes. A lot of people, you know, like I said, we look a little bit different. So they tend to ask like, hey, who's this person riding with you? Like, you know, it doesn't look like your colleague in a way, right? Like, we don't wear the same things. But when they say social workers, like, it just changes the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah.
I have seen like sometimes where it has been like the person has been like really high up, and then it starts to de-escalate a little bit. When they like, oh, social worker, okay, like, can you talk to my daughter, or can you like talk
Sure.
to me or something, like, you know? So I think they have been welcoming, or I think it's just new to actually see a social worker on an evening shift with a police
Right.
officer. I think that, right, like social workers usually work the day shift, morning to afternoon or something. They never really seen like there's a social worker available at 9 o'clock, like, you know, like, I think it's different.
Yeah. Same?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, I mean, the experiences that we've had so far, at least for me, people have been welcoming. I think, like Francelis said, it's a shock to people. You know, they're not expecting a social worker to come out with a police officer to respond to their need. And I think the biggest thing, though, you know, in the calls that I've been to, is there is a need out there for these people. And a lot of the time, they don't necessarily know how to connect themselves with these particular resources. They don't know what resources are out there for them. And if they do, it's that fear of, well, do I reach out or do I wait for somebody to reach out for me? So I think the people that we've interacted with are latching on to the fact that a social worker is coming out, and possibly able to help them be connected to those resources. It's not just, oh, you're responding to my call and that's the end of it.
Right.
Now there's a step further happening. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And have you caught any backlash, any sideways glances from citizens at all? Because that was one thing I was worried about going into this program. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to show up with, you know, you guys already have your bachelor's, you're in a master's program, but like, I'm showing up with interns, right? I'm showing up with a college student to be like, hey, are you willing to accept help from this person? Like,
Yeah.
this is who we have to offer you. We like them. Like, are you willing to? And I was, I don't know what I was expecting. Like, if you give somebody a brand new cop or like a trainee cop, a lot of times the reaction is bad to that, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, no, I want to talk to somebody else, or I want somebody with more qualification, or I want whatever it is. But have you gotten any of that yet? Like, and even the new cops will get like hazed by the community a little bit. It's like they'll get called out as, you know, any of that, or no?
Not yet.
That's great.
Like, yeah.
No, not yet.
No?
I wouldn't be surprised though if it does happen, like down the road. Like, again, we're only 2 weeks in. I think
Right.
there will be people out there that are going to be like, you know, why are you here? I don't need your help.
Right.
Or, you know, there you might have those people that don't want to talk to the police officer, and they see you and they see that you look different, and they're like, oh, well, who are you? I think I want to talk to you.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting, and I'm like really excited for that piece moving forward. But so far, no, I would say.
And what about our officers? They've been good to you so far? Does anybody shut right down when you're in the room? Like, I wouldn't expect them to be mean to you, but like, do people clam up and be like, anything
Well,
like that?
Like I mentioned, I feel like they're filling us out in a way. Yeah, there's been some that are kind of like, you're the social work intern? Oh, cool. Like, you know, but like, I kind of expect that in a way. Like, you guys are, I'm thankful that you guys are welcoming us to your house. We're in your setting, we're stepping in your house. So I kind of like understand why they're probably like, cool, right along with me, or like, I want to see what you can do type thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that for me, I can show my growth. I can challenge myself. Okay, like let's work together, but I can see a growth in that.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like, we're here for a year, so I'm hoping by the end of the year, like, we can all look back and I can ask those questions, right? Like,
Yeah.
and though you were probably thinking like, oh, we got interns in our department, but now by the year's over, you're like, wow, like that was really effective, or like,
Right.
Nick, can you get a new pair of interns like after us or something, you know, like.
Right. Yeah. I hope that goes that way, and I hope that's the reaction. Police culture is weird. It's if you haven't noticed already, and I'm sure you have, it's like we're very, very, very open with each other and very kind of reserved with everybody else, and it's because of that ambush type thing that we told you about. Like, there's just a trust factor there of, well, am I going to be intentionally mistaken here? Am I allowed to make a joke in front of this person? Am I allowed to, be comfortable and like blow off steam in front of this person? So hopefully can they? Is that okay with you?
Of course.
They're going to be watching this. Is there anything you want to say to any of them? Like, some of them will be watching it. They won't be watching till the end, but is there anything you want to say to any of them, like, that they should know about you?
I feel like, just, I understand that police culture is different. Our culture is kind of like the same, right? Like, there's those days where I talk to Rosa, and we just kind of let it all go. And it might be things that I'm like, oh, maybe, we shouldn't say in front of people and stuff like that. But like, for the people that are watching and work for this department, I just want them to feel comfortable and know, like, we have similar cultures, and it's like, we're here to work together. We're not here to, like, you're doing that so wrong. Oh my God. Like, and, it's like, teach me what's in your toolbox, and I'm going to teach you what's in my toolbox.
And that's exactly what we're hoping to see out of all of it. Like, how are social workers about, like, gallows humor?
What's that?
Like dark humor?
Yeah, Dari. So, like, that's it's the polite and appropriate way to refer to, like, kind of the cop line of humor, which is you deal with death and destruction and awful things all day long, and nothing is off limits for joking about when you're done. Right.
I feel like, Rosa, you can chime in as well, but like, that's kind of in our line of work too. Yeah. We see trauma all the time. We experience vicarious trauma all the time. Like, our level of trauma is like twice, right? Like, it's so high that, like, sometimes some jokes I'm like, wow, did I really say that? And then I'm like, okay, let me relax for 1 minute, right? Like, it's just, but that's really how you have to deal with things sometimes.
Yeah, I think again, I'd be lying if I said, in the beginning of this work, when I first started my bachelor's, or I first started social work in general, I hear jokes that people would make. For example, my internship with DCF during my bachelor's level, I'd hear certain people make jokes about, the families they're dealing with or the things that they've seen, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you making a joke about that? It's not funny. But, the more and more... That's why
you're making a joke about it.
Right. Yeah. And the more and more you get into the work, you realize that it's... Sometimes it's your way of dealing with that trauma, to make a joke out of it, and that it's okay. Like, if that's your way of coping, then that's what you have to do. And you're all in this together. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how... And I mean, us too, us as the people that are in the professions, as law enforcement and as social workers, we go through very similar, like, trauma instances, or I don't want to say scenarios, because obviously the things you guys respond to could be far worse than what we respond to. But we're putting ourselves in these detrimental situations that could cause us harm and affect our mental health too. Yeah. And I don't think, for the people watching who aren't necessarily in these fields, I think just keeping that in mind, if you are around us one day and we make a joke about something that we've dealt with, and you're like me when I first started in the field, and you're like, why are you making a joke about that? Like, it's our way of coping, Yeah. So.
I did notice that at the Police Social Work Academy, and listening to Dr. Logan talk, like, social work seems very systematized in terms of dealing with that. Like, I don't know how many times she talked about self-care
Yeah.
to you guys just during that week, but that is an absolute, like, that's a part of what you're doing. There's a standardized way that you go about it. There's things that you do very intentionally that are requirements to make that happen. And I'm hoping that's maybe something that we'll see bleed over into police work is kind of the protocol base for that and what it looks like. Like, you guys do the peer group and different stuff, and it's a requirement.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and I don't remember what the 9 competencies were. I'm sure I'll be able to rattle them off by the end of the year, but I feel like that was in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Was, you know, understanding stress management and self-care and doing all those things. Do you guys see anything like that out of police work yet that you go, oh, social work could use an ounce of that?
Like, in terms of, like, your guys' self-care?
No, not self-care, just in terms, like, when I look at social work, I go, oh man, they've really got self-care down to, like, this science. And, like, what a lovely thing it would be to have some of that in police work, and, like, for us to basically just take that, like, just steal it from social work. They're good at it. Like, have you seen anything in police work yet? We were like, oh man, like, why isn't this in the School of Social Work? Or, like, what do we think, like, or maybe you haven't yet. It's been 2 weeks, but.
I think for me, I don't, like, so far I haven't yet. I think being out in the field with you guys, like, out on the ride-alongs and out in the field, I think the way that you guys talk, like, to the community, and when you're trying to de-escalate somebody, I've already picked up on a couple of things that you guys, like, say, or the way that you approach it. And I'm in the field of social work, and, like, that's what we're taught in school, and I don't think I've ever really, like, picked up on it per se until I've watched somebody else who's not in the profession doing it. You know, being out on the road the other day with an officer, just listening to him talk to the person out in the community who we were responding to, he really brought her from all the way up here down here just by using his calm tone of voice and his wording. So I think, like, that's something that I could say. I was sitting there and I was like, oh, I'm gathering that and I'm absorbing that to what words did he use to bring her from all the way up here to down here. So that's something that I would snag personally. I don't know if it'd be like social work in general, because again, that's what we're taught, but just seeing it in a different point of view, I guess you could say. I don't know about you, Francelis.
Well, I agree with Rosa to an extent, right? I feel like in social work and the academia world, when I was getting my bachelor's, I don't want to use the word robotic, but it is robotic, right? Like, we're trained sort of like, they train us to be in a clinical setting. This is, in my school, this is considered a non-traditional setting. This is actually, I think I'm probably one of the first social workers that are in a police department. And one thing I learned from your presentation was de-escalate and build rapport, which we kind of do that. But like Rosa said, seeing the way you guys do it and the way you guys engage and just like a normal conversation, just humanizing like the whole situation, like everything is all humanized. I feel like in social work, we kind of are trained, not necessarily to sit in an office, but we're kind of trained of like, so Nick, like, how did that make you feel? Sort of type thing, right? Where it's like, you have to, I learned one thing I want, like, I wouldn't say snag, but like, just be authentic, right? Like, just be yourself, go out there and just have that normal conversation. Oh, I can definitely, like, I can't even imagine the pain you're going through right now, or like, that's tough, right? Like, just normal conversation. That's really like how you just gonna de-escalate and just build rapport. You have a really nice shirt on right now, like something like that, like, you know, like things like that. I wouldn't, like she said, like, that's just something for me personally that I have, like, from the people I've been on ride-alongs and the training that you have given us, that I have picked up, that I'll definitely carry that with me, because I felt like before I was kind of just trained in that mindset of like, I'm like, wow, I deal with people every day, but I wasn't really dealing in this situation. Like, I do school social work, so I have my own office and I meet with kids and we talk. And now, yes, I talk like that, but like most of the time it's like, oh, I can see in the setting you've been using your coping skills. Like, you know, like, you can't do that in a situation when a person is like really angry. I can't just step in and be like, ma'am, do you use any coping skills? Like, I can't, it's different.
Right. Yeah, it's not the time and place for it.
Right.
I think where policing has something to offer other professions, if it has something to offer, it's adaptability. Like that's the real strength of police that I see. Like, they always joke about the rivalry between firefighters and police, and like we drive each other crazy because everything a firefighter does is like teamwork based. Number one, they are like a solid team, and it's very systematic. It's very protocol driven, and like all those protocols exist for a reason. And human behavior doesn't adhere to protocol most of the time. So I think like we're reasonable at adapting and kind of getting creative sometimes. I don't know if that's something that we'll always be able to pass on to a different profession, but like it does leave us lacking in the things that like you said, you called it robotic, but like it's systematized too. Like there's a lot of benefit in a lot of it makes what you do thorough, right? It ensures quality work doing that. And it'd be nice to see some of that brought into policing where it can fit. It can't always fit out on the scene when somebody's raging angry, right? That's why we have to be adaptable. But it'd be nice to see us use some of that maybe more in the building or more in the way that we decide to organize things with the community. And do you guys have thoughts on the community so far? Like I know, well, you've lived here forever.
Yeah.
You're newer to the community, but you've been riding around. You've been to some events now. What do you think they need? Do you know what they need yet? Or is it just, still probe for more information?
I think I'm still trying to figure out like what exactly are their needs in the community. But from the events that I have been to, they have seemed welcoming. Like, I want to say supportive.
Yeah.
I think we still have a lot of work to do, just getting our name out there. Like, we are social workers embedded with Norwich Police Department. Like, you will see us around. You might see us on a day shift, or you might see us on a night shift. But I'm still trying to just learn the community. I'm really still trying to learn the roads, to be honest. Like, I just look for blue signs and a rose.
Yeah.
So I still got a lot of way to go.
Yeah.
I think, for me, as somebody who has grown up here and lived here my whole life, there's a lot that I can honestly say I didn't know about. In terms of like where things are, certain roads that exist that I never knew existed, like that we've gone down, and just realizing how many people still live here that I like went to school with, or just how a lot of people from Norwich don't really leave Norwich. Even as we get older, even myself, like, I don't plan on leaving Norwich. I really enjoy being here. I want to give back here. But responding to the calls that we go to, seeing how many people out in the community are people who I know. And like getting caught in that situation where is this a conflict of interest, I guess you could say, in dealing with this person. Are they going to want to talk to me because I did go to school with them, or are they going to lash out at me and be like, what the hell are you doing in the police department? Kind of thing. Like I said, that support system again.
I went to school here too, so it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes you're the only person they want to talk to.
Yeah.
Only you will do because they know you. And sometimes you show up and it's like, you better just leave. Like, you're making things way worse now. They're potentially embarrassed because it's somebody they know, or they decide they really don't like you or didn't like it. Yeah, it can be. If you do have, well, for us, right, we have to arrest people. It's like, so you arrest somebody that you know, and some of them are like, they feel betrayed.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hey, it's my job. Like, I'm sorry. I'll treat you well, but they feel betrayed. So I guess that's kind of why I wanted to have you guys on, because people don't know about this yet, and now hopefully they're gonna know about it and know what to expect. So far what I've been doing is, kind of encouraging people like the guys or gals that are taking you along to just, when you show up to a call, if you're gonna go inside somebody's house, say, hey, these are Masters social work interns and they're riding with us. Is it all right if they come in? Like, can they come in? Is it okay if they help? And so for the audience, if we're showing up. That's what you might expect to see. And then I want to just hear like real quick your predictions, because we're going to do this again. We're going to do this again on like winter break, and put one out, and then we're going to do one at the end, and here's some wrap up. So I want like your predictions, your expectations recorded, so they either come true or I can like later on be like, we'll see, as if I knew what the future held. So
well, my expectation is that hopefully by winter break, I know all the roads and I can come back and better tell you guys what are some needs in the community, and feel confident saying it, right? Because right now I'm still trying to figure it out. And I don't know what my predictions are. Maybe more people will like us, or maybe more people will be like, get him out. I don't know. I mean, I hope that more people will like us in the department. And I mean, like, as in community, like, thinking like, oh, this is a great idea, or like, I benefited from your social workers, or they're doing a good job or something.
Yeah, Francelis hit the nail on the head. That's the terminology that, is that the right word? I hope. But I think just being able to know, like I said, living here, being able to know more about where I've grown up and what the needs of the community are by winter break, and how we can help them. And my predictions for the future, I don't really know. I don't know yet.
all right. My predictions are this.
Throw them at us.
All right.
I want to hear this.
So I think the people that learn about you here and know about you here, if we tell them about you ahead of time and introduce you to them ahead of time through this medium, and if we start doing the same with recruits, is what I'd really like to do, then they'll have reason to believe in you and invest in you, because you're not just a faceless thing for the police department. So I think that will be helpful. I think by winter, everybody will be comfortable with you, and you'll feel comfortable out on the road. Like, you'll know what to do on a few calls, like, and you'll really start to be getting a hold of it. I think by the end of the year, at least one officer comes to each of you with a personal issue, and I hope that they do. That's something they're welcome to, right?
Yes.
Because I know Dr. Logan talked about it, and you guys are totally confidential with all that stuff.
Yes.
Right. So that, like, my hope and expectation for by the end of the year is that happens at least once. And lastly, that you apply to be a police officer, because we've already talked about that. And if Dr. Logan's watching, I'm going to steal your intern, because she's going to make a good cop. So those are my predictions, and we'll see. We'll check in again in the winter. And that's it. That's the end of Community Off the Cuff. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Wasn't too bad, right?